I can still clearly recall the moment when I believed my life had fallen apart. Yet, it hadn't been as dramatic as one might think. No shouting, just a few icy screams. Speaking with surgical precision, I found myself in the center of a busy Berlin meeting room. My phone rang in my pocket midway through a presentation of a historic deal that would guarantee the future of my business. Initially, I wasn't going to respond, but for some reason, perhaps intuition, I stepped aside. "To answer!" "Michael," Mary's voice came over the line. It was clipped, not as warm as it usually was when I traveled. The words didn't register at first when she recited a prepared statement. "I'm leaving you." Even though my stomach tightened, I blinked and let her continue. "I have sold the house and the car. Don't bother coming back. I'm pregnant, and it's Mark's child." My grip on the phone tightened. My 7-year marriage, the life I had built around it, was being dismantled as if it were a bad contract. I should have been angry, wounded, ashamed. But instead, I felt nothing. My emotions couldn't keep up with the logic running through my head. "Okay," I said. Her breath hitched. She had expected tears, rage, a fight. Instead, I was calmly indifferent. But it wasn't because I didn't care. Oh, I did. The silence stretched. She was waiting for something. Anything. "Okay?" she repeated, almost irritated. "Okay," I confirmed and hung up. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and returned to the meeting, finishing my presentation without missing a beat. No one in that room knew my marriage had just ended. And to be honest, I wasn't ready to deal with it either. I functioned on autopilot until I got back to my hotel room. Sitting by the window, staring at the Berlin skyline, my thoughts churned. We were trying for a baby? Since when? And who the hell was Mark? Then came the rage. Not an explosion, not a scream, just a cold, calculated fury bubbling beneath the surface. But I didn't let it consume me. Instead, I grabbed my laptop and started working. Mary thought she could blindside me. She had no idea who she was dealing with. First, I called my lawyer. "Andrew, I need you to stop the sale of my house immediately." His voice sharpened. "What's going on?" "My wife just told me she's leaving me. She claims to have sold the house and the car." There was a brief silence as Andrew calculated the legal implications. "We'll freeze all transactions on the house deed right now. As for the car, if it's still leased in your name, she can't sell it without your consent." "Good. I'll handle the rest." Next, I called my financial advisor. "Lisa, freeze all joint accounts." She didn't ask questions, just confirmed it would be done. That's why I hired her. With logistics handled, I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. The shock was still there, lingering beneath the surface, but alongside it was something stronger: resolve. Mary thought she could destroy me. She thought her betrayal would leave me in ruins. But she had underestimated me. I had spent years outmaneuvering rivals and closing deals that others deemed impossible. She may have taken me by surprise emotionally, but strategically, she had just declared war in a game she didn't even realize she was playing. And I didn't. React, because reacting meant giving her control, and I wasn't about to do that. Instead, I waited, I planned, and when the time was right, I struck. Mary believed she had won, but this was only the beginning. She attempted to call the real estate agent regarding the stone-walled house, even though she was denied when she attempted to withdraw money again. Calls to Mark began to go unanswered. The best thing was that she made 3 attempts to reach me. Every time, her voice became more panicked. I let them all go to voicemail. "I don't know what's going on, but we need to chat. So please, give me a call back, Michael. I'm pleading with you, Michael. I really need your assistance. You can't ignore me. You should call me back." I ignored all of them and let her get caught up in the chaos. When David learned the truth about Mark's escape plan, he started to retreat slightly. That was the last straw. David informed me that it appeared Mark had been transferring funds from Mary's personal account to a different account under a phony name. That made me chuckle. "Mark, do you know where he's going?" "South America," David stated. "The passport records are authentic." I nodded and let him go. Mark would get what was gradually approaching him, and when he eventually vanished, Mary was left on her own, impoverished, pregnant, and confined to a house among the wreckage of her own creation. She was unable to sell her surroundings, which, only weeks before, had appeared so ideal. Nothing but a shattered facade. I nearly felt terrible for her. But in actuality, Mary's demise wasn't a coincidence. It was the consequence of her own decisions, her own avarice, and her own betrayal. I simply stood aside and allowed her to ruin herself. As the jet touched down, home felt unreal. I wasn't just going back to the place I had left weeks earlier. I was stepping onto a battlefield. But the conflict ended before it started. I had won, and Mary was unaware of it. I controlled my emotions while the flight attendants made their last announcements, but a small smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. The players were in position. The stage was set. All that remained was the final act. As soon as I entered the terminal, I saw Mary standing next to the baggage claim. She looked like she hadn't slept for days. Her clothes were wrinkled, her hair unkempt, and her face, well, it was the kind of expression that only comes when you realize everything is crumbling around you. I paused in my tracks, letting the picture fully settle in. I didn't have to ask why she was there. She wasn't waiting to greet me out of love or regret. She contacted Michael in a hurry because she was desperate. Her voice was loud enough to draw attention, but I maintained a steady pace. She reached me just as I set my carry-on down, her hands shaking as she clutched my arm. Her eyes, wild. A mixture of terror and rage. She demanded to know what had happened. "What did you do?" I cocked my head slightly. "Gone. The accounts, the house, the car." "What did I do?" I repeated, my tone cold. "Everything went according to plan." Her mouth dropped open. For a brief moment, she was silent. That wasn't common. "With Mary," she stammered. "You ruined everything. The bank, the property sale. You halted the sale and froze the accounts. Why would you do this to me?" I kept my voice steady. "Because you lied, plotted, and tried to ruin me, Mary. You assumed I would simply roll over and let you have it all." I moved closer, lowering my voice. "But I'm not a fool. I've been playing this game longer than you have." Tears welled in her eyes. For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman I once loved. But it wasn't enough. Her voice cracked. "I made a mistake, Mark. I wasn't thinking clearly." I arched an eyebrow. "Is that what you're telling yourself now?" She nodded frantically, desperate to convince me. "Michael promised me things, but now that he's gone, I see how foolish I was." I chuckled bitterly. "Please, just give me another chance," she begged. "You didn't make a mistake, Mary. You made a conscious decision. You betrayed me. You sold our house. You drained the bank accounts. You had an affair. And now you want me back?" She winced. "I warned you once, Mary," I continued. "I told you not to underestimate me. You ignored me. Now you're paying for it." She fell to her knees in the middle of the airport, pleading with me as tears streamed down her face. "I have nothing left," she sobbed. For a split second, I felt a pang of sympathy. But it was brief. "You need me," I said, crouching to look her in the eyes. "When you sold our house out from under me and called to say you were leaving, where was that feeling?" Her tears grew louder, drawing the attention of onlookers. "And when you lied about being pregnant with someone else's child," I said, my voice firm. "You made your choices, Mary. Now you have to live with them." I picked up my luggage and turned away. She called after me, her voice frantic. "Michael, please, don't leave me like this." I hesitated for a second. Then, over my shoulder, I said, "Mary, you left me first," and I walked out of the terminal, leaving her in the ruins of the chaos she had created. The journey home was peaceful. A mixture of contentment and resolution settled over me. This wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life. Mary had tried to break me, but in the end, she had only made me stronger.